Every civilization that has ever existed on Earth, every empire, every kingdom, every culture across 6,000 years of recorded human history has wanted the same thing. Not food, not land, not even power, gold. The ancient Egyptians called it the flesh of the gods. The Aztecs called it the sweat of the sun. The Romans built their entire economy around it. The Spanish killed millions to get it. The Americans tore apart a continent searching for it. And today, right now, in 2026, governments and billionaires are hoarding it in underground vaults because even in the age of cryptocurrency and digital banking, nobody truly trusts anything except gold. Why? It's just a metal. It's soft. You can't eat it. You can't build weapons from it. It has almost no practical use, and yet it has controlled human history more completely than any emperor, any religion, or any idea. This is the story of gold, and it is the story of us. Before we go into history, we need to answer the question that nobody stops to ask. Why gold specifically? Of all the elements on Earth, why did every civilization, independently, without contact with each other, decide that this metal was the most valuable thing in existence? The answer is actually scientific, and it's fascinating. Gold is chemically almost perfect for the role it ended up playing. It doesn't rust, it doesn't corrode, it doesn't tarnish. You could bury a gold coin today and dig it up in 1,000 years, and it would look exactly the same. Every other metal, iron, copper, silver, breaks down over time. Gold is essentially immortal. It's also rare enough to be valuable, but common enough to actually exist in usable quantities. If gold were as rare as osmium, nobody would ever find it. If it were as common as iron, nobody would value it. It's malleable. You can shape it into anything without it cracking or breaking. It's dense and heavy, which makes it satisfying to hold in a way that feels inherently valuable. And it's beautiful. That warm yellow glow is unlike anything else in nature. So when early humans started encountering it in riverbeds thousands of years ago, they weren't making an arbitrary decision. They were recognizing something genuinely unique. A metal that lasts forever, looks like the sun, and can be shaped into anything. The only question was what to do with it. The first great gold civilization was Egypt, and the Egyptians didn't just value gold, they believed it was divine. In Egyptian theology, gold was literally the flesh of Ra, the sun god. When light hit gold, it glowed with the same warmth as the sun itself. To own gold was to hold a piece of divinity in your hands. To bury a pharaoh in gold was to ensure their immortality. The scale of Egyptian gold extraction was staggering for the ancient world. Egypt controlled the Nubian gold mines, some of the richest deposits ever discovered, and for over 1,000 years they extracted gold on an industrial scale using slave labor in conditions of almost unimaginable brutality. The Greek historian Diodorus Siculus wrote about these mines in the 1st century BC, and what he described was essentially a death sentence. Workers, prisoners of war, criminals, anyone the state wanted to disappear, were sent into tunnels carved by hand into solid rock, working by lamplight, breathing rock dust with no way out. Overseers with whips ensured nobody stopped working. Nobody was ever released. The mines were a one-way trip. And yet, the gold they produced funded one of the greatest civilizations in human history. The temples, the pyramids, the monuments that we still marvel at today. All of it was built on the wealth that gold provided. The most famous example of Egyptian gold is Tutankhamun's burial mask. 24 pounds of solid gold, inlaid with lapis lazuli and carnelian, crafted over 3,000 years ago with a level of artistry that still leaves modern craftsmen speechless. That mask wasn't made to be seen. It was buried in a tomb, in a sealed chamber in a pyramid made purely for the gods and for eternity. That's how seriously Egypt took gold. It wasn't currency. It was theology. The Greeks inherited Egypt's obsession with gold, but transformed it into something new: economics. The Lydians of Western Turkey are generally credited with minting the first true gold coins around 600 BC. Before this, gold was traded by weight. You'd hack off a chunk and weigh it. The Lydians stamped coins of consistent weight and purity, and suddenly trade became dramatically easier. The idea spread instantly across Greece and then the Mediterranean world. This was one of the most important inventions in human history. Coinage didn't just make trade easier, it fundamentally changed how humans thought about value, wealth, and power. Suddenly, wealth was portable. A merchant could carry the equivalent of a farm's annual production in his pocket. Kings could pay armies in the field. Empires could project economic power across vast distances. The Greeks also gave us the first great gold myth, Midas. The story of the king whose touch turned everything to gold seems like a celebration of wealth until you remember how it ends. His food turns to gold, his wine turns to gold, his daughter turns to gold. He starves surrounded by everything he ever wanted. The Greeks understood something about gold that took other civilizations centuries to learn: that the desire for it could destroy you just as easily as the lack of it. Rome took Greek monetary innovation and scaled it to an empire. At its peak, the Roman economy was the largest in the ancient world, and it ran on gold. The aureus, the standard Roman gold coin, was accepted from Britain to Mesopotamia. Roman gold funded legions, built roads, constructed aqueducts, and maintained the Pax Romana for centuries. But Rome also showed what happens when the gold runs out. By the 3rd century AD, the empire was struggling. The gold mines were depleting. Military costs were skyrocketing. Emperors started doing something desperate. They began mixing copper into gold coins, reducing their actual gold content while maintaining their face value. This is called debasement, and it's essentially state-sponsored fraud. The result was inflation. Prices rose, the currency lost trust, trade contracted. And while gold debasement wasn't the only reason Rome fell, it was a significant contributing factor to the economic collapse that preceded the empire's end. Rome taught the world its first lesson about monetary policy. When you abandon the integrity of your currency, you begin to lose everything built on top of it. While Europe descended into the chaos of the Dark Ages after Rome's fall, a new gold-powered civilization was rising in the Middle East and North Africa. The Islamic caliphates of the 7th through 13th centuries controlled the most important gold trade routes in the world. West African gold, from the Mali and Ghana empires, flowed north across the Sahara through Muslim merchant networks and into the markets of Baghdad, Cairo, and Cordoba. The Abbasid Caliphate, at its peak in the 8th and 9th centuries, was almost incomprehensibly wealthy. The capital, Baghdad, was home to over 1 million people, the largest city in the world at the time. The markets sold goods from China, India, Africa, and Europe. The libraries contained more books than anywhere else on Earth. All of it was funded by gold. The most dramatic demonstration of Islamic gold wealth came in 1324 when Mansa Musa, the emperor of the Mali Empire, made his pilgrimage to Mecca. He traveled with a caravan of 60,000 people, 12,000 slaves each carrying 4 pounds of gold, and 80 camels each carrying 300 pounds of gold. When he passed through Cairo, he gave away so much gold as gifts and charity that he single-handedly caused an inflation crisis in Egypt that lasted 12 years. He literally had too much gold. He destabilized an entire regional economy by being too generous. Mansa Musa is believed by some historians to be the wealthiest individual who has ever lived. His fortune in today's money is estimated at over $400 billion. All of it was gold. If one word explains why Europeans sailed off the edge of their known world in the 15th century, it's gold. The Ottoman Empire's conquest of Constantinople in 1453 cut off the overland Silk Road trade routes that had connected Europe to Asian gold and spice markets for centuries. European powers were desperate for alternative routes. Portugal began exploring the African coast. Spain funded Christopher Columbus to sail west. Columbus's first journal entry after landing in the Americas in 1492 mentions gold 17 times. He wasn't there to discover a new world. He was there to find gold. What the Spanish found when they reached the American mainland exceeded their wildest imagination. The Aztec Empire of Mexico and the Inca Empire of Peru possessed quantities of gold that Europeans had never seen outside of legend. The Aztec Emperor Moctezuma received the Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés with gifts that included wheels of solid gold the size of wagon wheels. Cortés, who had arrived with 500 men, looked at these gifts and immediately began planning how to take everything. The conquest that followed was one of the most brutal episodes in human history. Cortés manipulated, betrayed, and destroyed the Aztec Empire in 2 years. The Inca Empire fell to Francisco Pizarro and his 168 soldiers through a combination of treachery and the devastating impact of European diseases on populations with no immunity. The gold that flooded back into Spain transformed Europe. Between 1500 and 1650, the Spanish extracted approximately 181 tons of gold and 16,000 tons of silver from the Americas. It was the greatest transfer of wealth in history up to that point. But it came at an almost incomprehensible human cost. Historians estimate that the indigenous population of the Americas fell by 90% in the century following European contact, from approximately 60 million people to around 6 million. Disease was the primary killer, but enslavement in gold and silver mines killed millions more. Spain briefly became the most powerful empire in the world on the back of American gold. But the story repeated Rome's lesson. Too much gold too fast caused inflation across Europe. Spanish manufacturing collapsed because it was cheaper to buy foreign goods with gold than to make anything. And within a century, Spain's gold-funded empire was in decline. The 19th century brought gold fever to the modern world in a way that reshaped entire continents. The California gold rush of 1848 began with a single moment. On January 24th, a carpenter named James Marshall was building a sawmill for a man named John Sutter on the American River when he noticed something glinting in the water. He picked it up. He tested it. It was gold. Sutter begged Marshall to keep it secret. Marshall agreed. Within weeks, the entire territory knew. By 1849, over 300,000 people had flooded into California from across the United States and around the world, from China, from Chile, from Australia, from Europe. They came by ship around Cape Horn, by wagon across the continent, by foot across the desert. People abandoned farms, families, and careers for the dream of gold. The reality was brutal for most. The easy surface gold was claimed within months. What remained required industrial equipment, capital, and backbreaking labor. The average 49er, as the gold rush miners were called, made less than a laborer back east. The people who got rich were the merchants selling supplies to miners at extortionate prices. Levi Strauss made his fortune selling durable canvas pants to gold miners. That's where jeans came from. But the gold rush transformed California, and by extension, America. San Francisco grew from a village of 1,000 people to a city of 25,000 in 2 years. California became a state in 1850. The Transcontinental Railroad was built partly to connect the gold-producing West to eastern markets. The entire demographic and economic character of the American West was shaped by gold fever. Similar rushes followed: Australia in 1851, South Africa in the 1880s, the Klondike in Canada in 1896. Each one reshaped its region permanently. Cities appeared overnight, ports expanded, railways were built, populations shifted, all chasing gold. The most important and least understood chapter of gold's history is what happened when governments decided to tie their entire currencies to it. The gold standard, the system where a country's currency is directly linked to a fixed quantity of gold, dominated the global economy from roughly the 1870s to 1971. Under this system, a dollar wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a promise that the government held a specific amount of gold in reserve, and you could theoretically exchange your dollars for that gold at any time. This created extraordinary monetary discipline. Governments couldn't print money they didn't have gold to back. Inflation was kept in check. International trade was simplified because currencies had stable, predictable values relative to each other. But it also created extraordinary rigidity. During the Great Depression of the 1930s, governments desperately needed to inject money into their collapsing economies. The gold standard prevented them. You couldn't print more money than you had gold. Countries that abandoned the gold standard first, like Britain in 1931, actually recovered faster because they could respond more flexibly to the crisis. The final end came in 1971, when President Richard Nixon made an announcement that transformed the global financial system overnight. He ended the convertibility of the US dollar to gold entirely. Dollars were no longer backed by gold. They were backed by nothing except the trust in the US government and economy. This moment, called the Nixon shock, is one of the most consequential economic decisions in modern history, and most people have never heard of it. Overnight, every currency in the world became what economists call fiat currency. Money with value only because governments say it has value and people believe them. Gold's official role in the monetary system was over. And yet, today central banks around the world hold over 35,000 tons of gold in reserve. The United States alone holds over 8,000 tons in Fort Knox and the Federal Reserve. In times of economic uncertainty, recessions, wars, currency crises, the price of gold rises because people around the world instinctively reach for the one thing that has held value for 6,000 years. In 2024, gold hit all-time record prices. Central banks were buying it at the fastest rate in history. In a world of digital payments, cryptocurrency, and artificial intelligence, humans are still hoarding the same soft yellow metal that an Egyptian slave died pulling from a mine 3,000 years ago. Why? Because gold doesn't need a government to back it. It doesn't need electricity to exist. It doesn't need anyone to believe in it. It just is. It was here before every civilization that ever valued it, and it will be here after every civilization that values it today. Every empire that has ever risen has reached for gold. Every empire that has ever fallen has lost it. And somewhere right now, in a riverbed or a mine or a vault beneath a city, gold is sitting exactly where it has always been. Patient, permanent, and waiting. Some things never change. Subscribe, because the history of the world is written in gold, and we've barely scratched the surface.